Okay.
And if yes, if Tony would share his screen then, please.
Yeah, and there is a copy of the PowerPoint available for anybody who wants it. Okay, I'm going to go in and do a share screen. And okay, can everybody see the screen?
No, it hasn't shared yet.
Okay, sorry. Let's see.
Make
Ah,
sure.
sorry. I'm going to just share first and then do my screen, isn't it?
Yes, that looks like it's coming through now.
I'm out of practice right now. I can start the slideshow.
Yeah,
Right,
good.
you can see it now.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually,
So
what?
given that I've just said that I'm a jaded traveler, why on earth would we set off around the world? And given that I was an experienced traveler, why did I have so many pitfalls and pratfalls, as I call them? And just to say, this is not a travelogue. Um, the travelogue is done by my good wife, Sally, who's done a beautiful 500-page photo album depicting the trip in detail.
Sorry, Tony,
And
to interrupt for a moment. You're showing
sure.
me the double screen, not the final screen. Um, so we're seeing your next slide, in other words, as well as the one that we're talking about.
Okay, so I think I need to switch off the duplicate screen, do I? Uh, Screen sharing. I've switched off that screen. What am I doing? I'm doing my presenter slides, isn't it, rather than my...
Yeah, yes, you need to um, exchange them somehow. Perhaps press the exchange. Uh, is that right?
Is that it?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah.
Definitely out of practice.
Nope.
Okay, so that was the travelogue that Sally did. A beautiful album, and it's a pleasure to share it with people. So the first sort of question is, well, why? Well, this was part of our honeymoon. We needed to visit various family and friends in Australia, New Zealand, and the USA. And some research showed that the travel times and costs of going to, say, Australia, New Zealand, and back, and then to the USA and back, were much the same as a round the world trip. So we thought, well, let's get going and just keep going and cover and visit all the people we need to. Well, the next question is how? If you're going to go around the world, you can go east to west, or you can go west to east. And do we try and get a round the world ticket or individual flights? And there's sort of pros and cons of both. Well, there's a very simple reason why we chose, well, two reasons. We chose one way. If you go west to east, it's about 50 hours of flying to get around the world. Whereas if you go the other way, it's 60 hours of flying, give or take a bit. And the simple reason for that, of course, is the jet stream. The one way you're flying with the jet stream all the way, and the other way you're flying against the jet stream all the way. So to my mind, going east to west is always better. There's some saying that it's the jet lag is worse that way. I don't find it, but anyway, to me, the less flying time. So that's what our trip looked like, going from Cape Town to um, Singapore to New Zealand, and then to Australia, and Australia on to California. And this is also answers the question of why we had to get individual flights, not a round the world ticket. The round the world tickets come with so many restrictions. For example, we could not have done this leg back from New Zealand to Australia. You always have to keep going in the same direction. So The other bigger disadvantage of a round the world ticket, they had to start and end in Johannesburg. So you had to do another flight from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So individual flights it was. But booking each flight separately requires careful planning and evaluation of any options. I mean, it's got well-known pitfalls. You're going on multiple airlines. You get anything wrong, you're on your own. There's no, you miss a flight for any reason, that's it. You lose your next flight. So you've got to be kept very careful. We avoided connecting flights wherever possible, and virtually the whole trip we did, by choosing airlines that allow stopovers. So, for example, we could go via Singapore and we could stop for 3 days, which gave a rest, chance to see Singapore, and then carry on with no problems of missing connecting flights. Other airlines, Fiji Airlines, allowed getting from Australia to California. Fiji allowed a stopover. Philippine Airlines was the cheapest airline, but it did not allow stopovers. So, you've got to really look at each airline and what they allow and what they don't allow. But to get a sort of a similar price to a round the world ticket, you really had to sort of go for the lowest cost flights, or near the lowest cost. And that's got some risks. That you can't normally you can't cancel them. Often you can't change them without paying a penalty, sometimes quite a heavy penalty. So you need to do your research carefully. I use Google Flights extensively to search, but I always book directly with the airline. So I'd find out which airline looked the best, and then I'd go to that airline, even if it was more expensive. I mean, when you go to Google Flights, you get all sorts of options. Go to Gate, whole list of people you can book through, intermediaries. Not usually much cheaper. And as I say, what I was told is always go direct to a flight, to an airline, because then you have some recourse if anything goes wrong. So that was the sort of characteristics of the planning. You've also got the catch-22 of visas and insurance. Visas often require proof of insurance. Insurance requires fixed dates, inward and outward. So what I did was I booked our first flight, which was Cape Town, Singapore, and the flight home, which was New York, Cape Town, which had cancellation options, even if it was a bit more expensive. And then we took out the insurance. I used my credit card, plus added the over 75 add-on, which is, well, if the standard credit card insurance, free cover, only covers you up to 65. And so, you have to take on the add-on insurance if you over 75. Or sorry, over 65 even. Over 75, it becomes even more complicated. Then we got our visas, Australia, New Zealand, and USA. It took about 3 months, and then we booked the rest of the flights. So it's quite a process. It took about 4 or 5 months to plan the whole trip, get visas, and book the tickets. So having meticulously planned over many months, what could go wrong? Well, we arrived at Singapore at 6 a.m. to discover that the Hotel Key Lavender, which we had booked into, had been demolished. And the taxi driver dropped us at the sister, Hotel Key, who, not surprisingly, had no record of our booking and was sort of, like, well, it's not our problem if you book at a hotel that doesn't exist. And this was through booking.com, by the way, who had failed to advise me that this hotel had disappeared. Well, fortunately, they could offer us a bed, but only 6 hours later. And 6 hours roaming the streets of Singapore in 33 degrees of heat while waiting for the room to become available rapidly took the honeymoon shine off our trip, not to mention the severe dent in the confidence of my good wife in my planning abilities. But so the lesson from that, check your bookings again and again. Make them 5 months in advance, by all means. Check them 2 months in advance, check them a month in advance, check them a week in advance. Well, from there, very pleasant, uneventful trip to New Zealand. We were visiting friends in the north half of North Island. We didn't do anything ambitious, just around Hamilton, Katikati, Whitianga, all around the Coromandel Peninsula, which is a lovely part of New Zealand. A very relaxed 3 weeks exploring like a local. We had a rental car, which gave us a lot of freedom. And as I say, we had a great time with friends. To us, that's one of the best ways to travel is staying with friends. And um, you just see so much more. Okay, well, all that went well, but here came problem number two. Leaving Australia, we arrived at Brisbane airport in good time, but informed that we had been bumped due to some incoming flight that had been delayed or whatever. And we had to wait 14 hours for the next flight, which had meant we arrived at Fiji the next morning instead of that night. Well, besides the discomfort of sitting around the airport, there was also the problem of the car and the rental we'd booked. Because if you just don't arrive, of course, you can lose deposits, and the next thing you don't have a hotel booking and you don't have a car. So I yeah, had to deal with that problem. First problem was dealing with the stay, so I demanded, got quite shirty, and I got a hotel for the day, a taxi to and from the hotel, an 100 Rand meal voucher, and an upgrade to first class. So getting a bit uppity with the airlines can sometimes, not always, but sometimes be quite not helpful. Lessons be very demanding. We found out when we got on the flight eventually, the other passengers had not been so lucky. They just meekly accepted us and they just sat around the airport for 14 hours and got nothing. And number two is have the numbers of the hotel and car ahead so you can call and change. As I say, if you're just a no-show, you can lose things. And that's international calls, so you have to scramble around and make those calls quickly. Anyway, we duly arrived in. There was a upside to this. We arrived in Fiji in the morning instead of at night, and we had a very pleasant drive around the Fiji Coral Coast instead of driving it at night. So, you always got to be fast on your feet, flexible, and then you can make a plan. But now comes the big one, right? Leaving Fiji on the evening of 17th of June, you arrived in San Francisco on the morning of the 17th, not the 18th. I had completely forgotten about the inconvenient truth of the international dateline. So arriving the consequence of which we arrived a day early for our accommodation. Now, that was a hotel that could be a bit catastrophic because they may not have space and you're scrambling around to find a place. But fortunately, this was a home exchange and we could move in the day early because the hosts weren't there. Well, there was an upside. We had an extra day in San Francisco. Well, the lesson from this, of course, if you're doing your own tour planning, you haven't got a tour company behind you getting through all these details. Sort up your geography carefully and remember little details like crossing a dateline, which can easily just slip your notice. Anyway, we arrived in California, San Francisco, which was rather a disappointment. I had lived across the bay from San Francisco for 2 years and loved it. That was nearly 50 years ago. So obviously things had changed, but whatever. We then did a trip up to Yosemite, Salinas, Big Sur, Half Moon Bay, and back, about 1,000 kilometers of driving. Easy driving up through the Sierra foothills in a level 2 self-driving car, which was marvelous. You could just set it going on the Californian freeway and it would drive itself for hundreds of kilometers. Yosemite, spectacular. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it, if not been there, but very crowded. Wow, it was packed, which took the shine off it a bit. Big Sur, bit of a disappointment. Our own R44 down to Betty's Bay is much better. So, if you want to see a spectacular coast road, go down the R44. Don't worry to go all the way to California. The coast up north of Monterey, going up this side towards Half Moon Bay, that was actually more interesting, more wild, less developed. And Half Moon Bay, which is a major surfing spot in California, it was actually delightful, surprised us. I really didn't know about it. So, interesting 10 days in California, sort of revisiting old spots. Florida, whoa, what can I say about Florida? We were visiting Sally's brother, so we had to go there. And then we did a sort of 1,000-kilometer loop around the Florida, Venice, Miami, Palm Beach, Cocoa Beach, where Kennedy is, Tampa, Venice. 1,000 kilometers of hot, flat, and really, really boring. Average of 6 meters above sea level. That's Florida for you. But the Kennedy Space Center was amazing. Obviously, visiting Sally's brother was good. But in terms of tourism, the only thing there that was of any interest was the Kennedy Space Center. The rest of Florida you can keep. I hope I'm not offending any people who are from Florida. Okay, just a few other comments about the trip and things that help make a long trip like this go easier. I'd had back surgery a few weeks before we departed, so I was advised to use airport wheelchair facilities. And it's very simple. You just tick WCHR. That's what you see on the booking forms, which stands for wheelchair to the ramp. On the reservation, and that's it. It's done. And it makes an enormous difference to the speed, ease, and comfort of transiting airports, which can be a nightmare. And that's both departure and arrival. You just whisk through the airports with, you don't bypass, but you get priority, like you were a first-class passenger going through both immigration and customs. And help. I mean, some of these US airports, I'll give you one example. We arrived in San Francisco, an overnight flight, you're a bit tired or jet lagged. You exit the plane last because you're a wheelchair passenger. They take you straight down to the luggage arrivals. You go through immigration. So you first through immigration, you get your luggage, you're virtually first out. So, and then they took us, he said, what's happening? We said, we've been picked up by a Uber. And he said, give me the Uber number. And he looked it up. And then there's like 10 Uber pickup points. And he takes you in the wheelchair directly to the point that your Uber is going to arrive and pick you up. And you step out of the wheelchair and into the Uber. What first-class service for that? And in New York as well, transiting Kennedy from Newark from domestic to international, an absolute nightmare. It takes about an hour. You go up and down about 7 or 8 different elevators through tunnels, trying to find your way through that. Exhausting and demanding. So you go and you just take it along all the way. They say, well, easy for me at least. For Sally, running behind the wheelchair, pushing a trolley full of luggage, was a little less easy, but she did benefit from the same rapid bypassing of security and immigration. So even if you're a couple, if one of you, and basically wheelchair assistance is available to anybody. If you're even over 60, you can just ask for it and they're happy to provide it. You'll see the wheelchairs lined up, particularly in the US. There's really only one airline, Fiji Airlines, asked for a doctor certificate, which I had. For the most case, particularly I think if you're an older passenger, it's just available. What else? Travel insurance. It's absolutely essential for both medical reasons, and usually you need it to get, often you need it to get visas, but also to cope with travel delay, plus luggage insurance. Delays in connecting flights are all too common, especially in the USA, and especially bad if delay is caused by weather, because the airline does not have to compensate you. It seems a strange thing, but when we were sitting at Newark, it was the one place, yeah, actually the one only place in the whole trip where we had a connecting flight. We flew up from Florida, landed at Newark, and we're catching our connecting flight out. We made sure we had very good time. I think we had allowed about 6 hours. And had by leaving in the morning, you also minimize the chances of delay. If you fly later in the day, there's more chance of disruption, both from weather and cumulative delays through the day. So I felt reasonably comfortable of flying from Florida in the morning and arrived at Newark with plenty of time. But in the departure lounge, we met a fellow South African who was now catching his flight back to Cape Town. Well, actually, he wasn't even going to Cape Town. He was trying to go to Johannesburg. And he had missed his previous connection due to weather delay. He'd come in from Denver. And result of which he had, because United only flies 3 flights a week, he had to spend 3 days in New York at his own cost. And furthermore, he was now arriving in Cape Town, not Johannesburg. So he had to then catch another flight from Cape Town to Johannesburg. So really, I just thought, relief, I'm glad that's not me. So, they're flying around the USA, catching connecting flights. Oh, you got to keep your wits about you and make sure you're covered for travel insurance. If you do get delays, at least, that you're not at your cost. Lost luggage, of course, particularly when these flights get delayed. Lost luggage is common. I mean, there's millions of bags a year lost. And we in New Zealand, we happened to, by total carelessness, we lost a whole package with our towels and costumes in it. Fell out of the top of my backpack. Thought, well, I suppose I can only ask. We reported it in case somebody might have picked it up and handed it in. So we had a lost property report from New Zealand, submitted this all to the insurers, and they paid out everything. It was about 5,000-6,000 rands worth to cover everything. And that basically covered the whole cost of our insurance. Now, I know you're not supposed to try and recover your cost of insurance, but these things happen when you're traveling. Even as I say, even if it's not the airline's fault, you can lose something somewhere. So I would say, decent travel insurance is well worth the cost. Word about car hire in the USA. Absolutely essential to book well in advance. We had a change of plans. We were going to stop in New York for a few days with my daughter, who lives in upstate New York. But then, for whatever reasons, we needed to go straight to Ithaca, which is upstate New York. You could not fly direct to Ithaca. We had to come across from San Francisco to Kennedy, and then, now we've got to get from Kennedy up to Ithaca. Now it's only it's about a 3-4 hour drive, so it's not that far to drive. But there were no cars available at Kennedy, none, zero, zilch, of any make, any model, any size, any cost. They were completely out of cars. This was a couple of factors. This was now the post-COVID car shortage in the USA because I'm sure the car hire companies had disposed of their stock to cut costs. Then they could not restock because of chip shortage, etc. And so, as I say, there were just no cars. So we had to wait 6 hours and take a very expensive 35-minute flight. I mean, you can't believe it. I mean, you were literally up in the air and then you were down again. to Ithaca. So it took 7 hours to fly, well, most of it was just sitting around, versus 4 to drive. And as I say, it cost about 5 times as much as it would have cost to hire a car. And that was my fault because I didn't make the plans and book in advance. But if you do get a car, the two we had, the one in California and the one that we got in Ithaca, because that I had planned to always drive from Ithaca across to Boston. They're always all automatics, of course. You can't get anything else but an automatic. And virtually all cars in the USA are now these level 2 self-driving, which makes for, as I say, very relaxed, easy driving. Home exchange. I don't know if anybody's heard about it, and I'm happy to take some questions and about it, because to us it's transformed the nature of travel. A friend had told us about it, and we joined shortly before we departed on this trip. I had booked a number of because in California we were staying in, and also Florida while we were doing our trip. We were staying in commercial, and I'd booked Airbnb and Booking.com reservations. So as I got home exchanges confirmed, I cancelled the Airbnb Booking.com reservations and used home exchange instead. And this saved us about 20,000 Rand. And more importantly, it was a much more enjoyable and interesting experience because you actually stay in somebody else's home, and they literally in the USA kind of like walk out and you move in, and there's food in the fridge, clothes in the cupboard, and they leave a lot of information about local sites. So you're living like a local, and it's everyone's different. You don't quite know what you're going to get. But there's obviously a fairly detailed description, where it is, what it's located, what the house has in it, and we've now done 18 exchanges, so it's our first choice. In fact, that figure's wrong. I finalized another exchange last night in Neisner, so we've now have got booked 19 exchanges. And that's in the space of 2 years. It's done on a points basis. So while we were in the USA, we had somebody from Botswana who was visiting Cape Town. Their daughter was at varsity here, and they stayed in our home for a month. So we got credit for about 4,000 points. We only used about 1,000 or 1,500 in the USA. So we came home with about 3,000 more points in the bank, so to speak, than what we had when we left. And now we've done, as I say, having done these 18 exchanges, we still have 4,000 points in the bank because we just periodically top it up. It helps that Sally has got a home in Betty's Bay, and we put that on home exchange rather than putting it on Airbnb. We've found it much easier, much friendlier to put it onto home exchange. And as I say, then we get to stay in some really delightful, luxurious homes around the country. Home exchange now has 200,000, more than 200,000 homes around the world. And their motto is to help grow a trustful community of travelers and invite them to experience the most human, responsible, and affordable way to travel. And as I say, we were not a little skeptical, very skeptical to start with. We had a very good first guest. We had an hour video call with her. She had done 96 exchanges, so she was a very experienced person. And she just kind of reassured us, answered any questions. We could walk her with a video call around the house, show her what was what. and just she made us complete at ease as to how this would work, and it was right. We've subsequently met her. She came around for tea one afternoon, and we've met some of our other hosts. Sometimes you meet them, sometimes you don't. Um, Sometimes they say you go and you stay in a house for a week and never meet the host, say somewhere else away. Other times, the one in Salinas, California, the host had left. She wanted to get points. She went to stay with a friend, and we got together and had a drink one night, and it was fun. So you meet a local person and a local person who's living locally, and they can give you useful information. So if anybody wants to know more about home exchange, I think you might gather I'm a bit of an enthusiast and happy to answer any questions. And that there's a link on this that you can go to for more information. They've got a special on this month. It's sort of a double points and a discount and prizes and all sorts of things running up from early March until the end of March. So if you do get interested, this month's a good time to have a look at it. It's free to register. If you actually want to exchange a home, you have to become a member. So my conclusion from the trip: plan meticulously. I did mainly, but I messed up a few times. Check and check again before booking, obviously, but even after booking, and go and check again, like my hotel in Singapore. And actually, I forgot to mention we booked one flight on the wrong dates. I only realized a few weeks afterwards I was going through. I thought, oh no, got that on the wrong date. Fortunately, that was a flight that could be changed it was well in advance, and it could be changed at very small cost. Use wheelchair assistance. If you, in my mind, I certainly won't go without wheelchair assistance because I've got this long-term back problem. But yeah, standing around for hours getting through airports is killing, and I can't do it. And use home exchange, and that's all I want to say. Ian, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. I would like to say if anybody has questions, they should unmute themselves first and then ask their question. Very interesting, though, the pitfalls and things you had. Also, this story of the dateline mistake, that was a classic from Round the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne.
Yeah. I was most embarrassed that I could trip myself up on that because this was not the first time I'd been around the world. I did a round the world trip in 1970 on our way to California and then came back on the other half. After I'd finished my studies. So I have done the dateline before, so how I could have forgotten it, I really don't know. Anyway. Hmm.
But we also had an experience once when we had to use a wheelchair, and like you say, it was very good, except that you had to check in a bit earlier than other times.
Yeah, we didn't find that a problem. I mean, look, if you're doing international flights, you generally, they're fairly early to make sure. So I can't recall that we got a specific instruction that we had to check in early because of the wheelchair access. Mm.
I think you must click to exit presentation, it says here.
Okay, click to exit presentation. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, well, not that that's any. Okay, well, never mind. If anybody else has questions or comments, don't hesitate.
Yes, it's Alan Caulfield here, Tony. A
Oh, hello,
very
Alan. How are you?
Hi, Tony. Yeah, okay, thanks. Well, I'll tell you, I'm not completely okay, but I did fall down a mountain a couple of weeks ago, but that's another story. So I just want to recap on your actual trip.
Yeah.
It from Cape Town to Singapore,
Yes.
and then you did Australia and New Zealand, and then you flew to the USA. Was it the West Coast or? Oh, yes, it was the West Coast, of course. Sorry, I've been working doing things while you've been talking. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we went into San Francisco.
Oh,
You had to land somewhere on the West Coast. There are no flights direct. Um, and I wanted to go there. I'd lived there for 2 years, and I wanted to go back and visit old haunts
yeah.
and etc. So we actually spent, as I say, 10 days in California. Um, San Francisco was a bit of a disappointment. It's not the city it was. Not helped by the fact that we were sick. I think actually Sally and I both might have had COVID actually. We spent of our 4 days in San Francisco, we spent 3 days in bed actually. So
Oh, God. Yeah, that's not very good. So, and all your things about hiring cars and that in New Zealand, they drive on the same side as South Africa, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah, and
that
the
was
same
a
side as
ordinary.
Australia.
It was an automatic, but not the level two self-driving which you get in the States.
Yeah, I think I would be a bit hesitant to get a self-driving car. I just don't like the idea of taking my hands off the steering wheel.
Oh, I could sit for like 200 kilometers going down the freeway in California and just relax and look at the scenery, and the car just drove itself. It was marvelous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any age-related issues when you hire cars on your trip?
No, I didn't pick up anything.
Mm.
Obviously declared my age because, otherwise if you don't, and I checked sometimes because I could have, got Sally to drive, and I would put it in the lower age and see what the price was and then put in my age.
Mm.
And I never found they charged a penalty.
Yeah. Mm.
Now, whether that changes at some point, 87, 90 or whatever, I don't know.
Mm. Yeah.
You
So,
just take a young wife, Ian, that solves the problem.
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Well,
What did you do in Europe, Tony? Did you
No, we didn't go to Europe at all.
not the UK either?
Sorry.
The UK.
No, we didn't.
Oh, you didn't. Okay. Yeah, I thought I was missing something there. But
Yeah, no, we
okay.
went
Yeah.
just to Australia, New Zealand, and the USA. That was all.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Mm.
getting those three visas was bad enough. Getting a UK visa would be an absolute nightmare.
Oh, yeah. That's the
Cecile,
problem.
just unmute if you want to speak, please.
Is that me or?
No,
No.
Cecile waved her hand. I don't know where she's gone now, though. Oh, maybe I don't know what happened there. Maybe she's saying goodbye. All right. Yeah, I mean, as I find as I get older, travel becomes less pleasant and also, of course, more crowded and everything else. So I don't look forward to it. We are actually going on a trip in a month or two, but I'm not mad about the idea anymore.
Yeah, that's what we've got to. Yeah, I mean, we could go with our 4,000 points. We could spend a month in Europe,
Mm.
Switzerland, Germany, anywhere in Europe. We
Mm.
could stay for a month free of charge.
Yeah,
And, all it would cost us is the airfare.
yeah.
And we say, do we really want to go through all that hassle?
Mm.
Um, so we're focusing now more on local travel
Mm.
and staying, as I say, last night I booked a home exchange in Knysna,
Yeah.
a very luxurious accommodation on the Knysna Heads,
Mm.
which you'd normally be paying thousands of rand a night for,
Mm.
and this you get for free.
Yeah. Mm.
And so it just opens up a lot more travel opportunities. And as I say, we're doing them increasingly,
Mm.
Yeah.
and really,
Talking about
really good.
local travel, I heard that there's a massive big airport being built in Angola, just near Luanda. And I think Angolan Airways is an up and coming airways. And in that area, evidently, it's quite nice. There's beaches and there's a massive big waterfall. It's not so far, is it? It's almost local travel, really. I just wondered about that.
Yeah, I haven't been there. Interesting enough, my brother-in-law is in Luanda today. He went on a cruise, and they're cruising from Cape Town to Lisbon, and they're stopping in Luanda, I think just for a day, I think it is. But yeah, you tend not to think of them being on the tourist map, but yeah, that's we tend to be a little bit. Let's say I found we've just been largely turned off going just as a tourist. We like to go and either visit family and friends, or and I'm heavily involved with Probus, and I'm now on my I think it's my sixth Probus adventure. That's all in South Africa. But that's doing a holiday, if you like with a group of friends, anything up to 24. It's typically 16, 18, 24 people. And we go to places all over South Africa, and it's been a lot of fun. So to my mind, just going, I mean, my daughter-in-law lives in Mauritius, and they work there. And I've been to Mauritius 3 times. And my idea of just sitting on a beach and having a holiday is totally boring, you know. I know some people love it, but yeah, each to their own. But to me, it's company, family, company of friends is the most important thing. Yeah, it's interesting to be visiting new places as well.
Well, Alan, you go to Turkey a lot, don't you?
Yes, I do, but I've just sold my place in Turkey and I've bought a place here in Flamingo Flay, but
Oh.
I still have lots of contacts in Turkey and I was thinking of going this year. And I'm in a lucky, sort of semi-lucky situation because I have a son who lives in Dubai. And he was here a couple of weeks ago, and I could go to Dubai, and that's a good hub for going to the UK and going to Turkey, Europe, well, Switzerland. I was in Switzerland last year. It costs a fortune to stay in Switzerland. But yeah, so
We had a Swiss couple that contacted us. They wanted to do a swap, and we could have stayed in Switzerland for 2 weeks absolutely free, other than just our food cost. It was a little village up in the mountains. Eventually, we decided no. We thought no, we don't really want to. I mean, you've still got to get there, and yeah, we thought, what's the point?
Tony, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, brilliant. Sue Trevor Wilson here. I just joined late.
Yeah, hi.
This talk sounds really intriguing. Two things I'd be interested in is insurance for the over 80s. Can you recommend anything? And also how this point system. I do a lot of traveling, but I'm really stupid. I don't get points for it. So how do I start?
On home exchange.
Well, no, I mean, generally, I have done home exchange actually, and I agree with you. It's fantastic service. I haven't done it for some time, but you're inspiring me to do it in the future.
Yeah, well, look, it takes a little bit while we were fortunate that we had somebody coming for a month because we were away for 3 months and we could, let them stay here, which was a big help for us because we needed somebody to look after our cats. And of course, that's what comes with the home exchange territory. if the people have got animals, well, then you take over responsibility to look after them. If you don't want to do that, well, then don't take that house. And they loved the cats, you know, and so that was a boon for us. And they had a nice place to stay, and we got points. Um, so it takes a bit of effort to get enough points. You know, you have to sort of bootstrap yourself up. As I say, we're in this comfortable position that we've got this 4,000 in the bank. So I think our trip to Neisner was 4 days, and the Neisner Heads was like 500 points, and we could just say, that's fine, we'll take it. We don't have to worry about have we got enough points. So once you're sort of in the system and going, it just rolls. But yeah, you have to work at it a bit to get there. It depends where your house is and what you can swap and your flexibility. You know, is it a primary house, or if you've got a secondary house, you know, like a holiday home, it's much easier because you can make it available pretty well the whole time, unless there's family or whatever else staying there. If it's your own house, of course, people can only come here when you're not there. What some people do if they've got family nearby, they will make the house available and then just go and stay with family for a week or whatever, just to earn some points. So there's ways to do it. And of course, if you travel a lot and you know the days you're going to be away, then you can make your house available at those times. And then you might get people taking it up. So yeah.
How do you have somebody clean it? I mean, do you have somebody housekeeping it or managing it for you?
No, not at all. We use a local cleaning company for the house in Betty's Bay, and they just come in and clean up afterwards, and they charge. And in home exchange, you are allowed to ask your guests to pay the cleaning fees. So that's the only charge that is allowed. You're not allowed to do any other charges, and you have to state up front that this house has a cleaning fee of whatever. Typically, I think in our house, and we had two in one in Struisbaai and another one in the Garden Route recently. They were both the cleaning fee of 800 Rand. And, you know, over 8 days, and these are houses that would otherwise go for 2,000 or 3,000 Rand a day. So a cleaning fee of 800 Rand, you know, and you getting a cleaning fee paid for 800 Rand for your house. So it all comes out in the wash, so to speak. Some people will say, no, we'll do the cleaning ourselves. And other people say, no, we don't. We're on holiday. We don't want to be bothered with cleaning. So home exchange covers a wide range of different travelers, if you like. And it's just finding a match between, you know, what you want, what suits you, and what suits the guests. And you have a dialogue. There's a lot of emphasis on dialogue, on making sure there's open and clear communication, so there's no misunderstandings. And after home exchanges put you in touch, you get their telephone numbers, and usually we get into WhatsApp discussion and we ask any questions, explain anything about the house. And so there's this sort of video call if you need it. So you almost, by the time the people arrive, they feel like friends. And by the time they've left, they are friends. You know, we've met some delightful people. And as you say, you really do feel like you're traveling with friends around the world. There is each exchange is rated by both the host and the guest, and you can see all those. So there's a very good self-management system. If any guest was misbehaving, that would soon be picked up, and that's it. They would just not get another, you know. So there's a huge incentive to make sure you look after your host's house and for the descriptions to be accurate. So it's a very well managed platform, actually. And
do you just go into Google to get into it? You get the contact details through Google.
Did you, why, Ian, can you send my presentation
Yes.
to see?
Yeah. If somebody wants it, please contact me on email, which I think you get with the notice of the meeting.
There's the link on on my last two slides. There's a link, and if you click that link, it takes you to Home Exchange and tells you about it and the options to, let's say, you can register an account at no cost, and you can look at what's available, and then you have to, if you have to list your house, if you want to go the next step, and they give you certain points for listing your house, you've got to verify yourself. You've got to verify your telephone number. You've got to verify your email. You've got to verify your government issued ID. So they go through a whole process of making sure that you are a sort of verified member.
And presumably you've got to completely depersonalize it. You've got to hide all your clothes and belongings.
No. We first thought this was necessary, and we cleared out a lot of cupboards because we had somebody coming for a month. We were a little bit surprised when we got to the USA. They had literally walked out of the house and they had not done anything. The clothing cupboards were full, the fridge was full, they just literally walked out and you walked in. That was it. And that tends to be, there's been quite a lot of discussion on Home Exchange about this. And the general consensus, it is polite to leave a little bit of space. Now, if somebody's coming for 2 or 3 days, we now only just, and if it's only a couple, we just clear one side of the cupboard in our guest room. We don't bother with anything in our bedroom. If we had a family coming for a month, then we would clear a bit more. But you don't put anything else away. It's pure trust. And there's insurance, by the way. They offer insurance and loss, so you are covered. But as I say, it's basically works on trust and vetting of 200,000 members of each other, and every exchange being rated, and that's why it works so well, I think. But no, it's minimal effort to clear the house, and I say it's just really what's reasonable and how long are they coming and how many people is it. But most people, when they're traveling, they're not having a lot of things, so they don't need a lot of space. Some people, if they have a spare bedroom, they will just take some clothes out of a cupboard and just drape them over the bed in the spare bedroom, and then shut that bedroom door and just say that room's not available. So that's another way that some people do it. I'll just mention one experience we had. Last year, we were going to the Franschhoek Literary Festival. We had a home exchange house, and there were 6 of us going from Probus. Shortly before the festival started, they cancelled the home exchange because the house had had storm damage, so they couldn't accommodate us. Now, Home Exchange, under those circumstances, does their best to try and find you a replacement. You don't have to look for it. They look for it. Well, they searched and searched, but not surprisingly, Franschhoek Literary Festival, there were, whatever, thousands of people in Franschhoek. There was nothing available anywhere in the vicinity. So what they did then, they pay us out. They paid us out $480. So that's, close to whatever, over 10,000 Rand that we got paid out to cover the cost of alternative accommodation. So they have that guarantee that if an exchange falls through, home exchange pays you out. So as I say, it's a well-run organization. As I've done work more with it, and you need a few hiccups like that to really find out just does the organization live up to its claims, and they did, and they, as I say, paid us out literally within a week.
Tony, what's the cost of membership?
$175 a year
Ah,
for an unlimited number of exchanges.
hmm.
So if you're going to do one exchange a year locally, well, even that probably pays. But if we've done 18 exchanges in 2 years, it's like $10 per exchange or whatever. It's negligible,
Does it cover the whole world? Would it cover Turkey or Dubai or places?
all over the world,
Okay.
from all through South America, huge in Europe, right across Asia, China, Japan. It's everywhere. It started in France initially, so it's particularly a lot of homes in Europe. So right across Europe, but it now seems to be very big in the USA. And you can get from a little one-bedroom place. Excuse me, to a palatial 10-bedroom mansion. Obviously the one will be 80 points a night and the other one will be 500 points a night. But you can take a whole family with you if you needed a big place, and you can find it. It's there was a place in Turkey we were looking at, or thinking of going with. It was like a 6-bedroom place down on the turquoise coast.
Where was
And
that? Near Bodrum?
no, I can't remember the name of the place now, but it looked delightful. But eventually it was just like too difficult to try and get all the family together at the same time. But I think that would have been about, I think as I recall, about 350 points a night. 200 is more typical for a 3 or 4-bedroomed place.
So,
Really, I've got a question. I assume you make your kitchen and the kitchen appliances available to the guests.
Everything, the whole house is available to them.
Okay, so that's including then use of your TV and Wi-Fi and hi-fi system in the lounge, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically you put out a home manual, anything from 2 pages to 30 pages, and
Okay.
you describe your house
Okay.
and how to, what the Wi-Fi code is. We had a family from Vienna staying with us for 2 weeks. Well, yeah, we weren't not with us, staying in the house. We swapped a car. So they had the use of my car while they were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not common, but it does happen, and people will state a car available. The car swap has got to be outside home exchange. They say, because of the complexities of insurance, that's a private agreement. And I checked it with my insurance company, and they said it was fine. And because you're not renting the car, it's lending it to friends. And I got my insurance excess, and I just told them you are, liable for this excess, which was less than the home exchange insurance cover. So I knew I was covered. They couldn't, if they caused damage and didn't pay, I would just make the claim on home exchange. But it went fine. They say not that common, but a car is a major boon. I mean, car rental is still quite a major expense of traveling, after accommodation. So there was one in Ireland that we were thinking of taking, and actually, we did actually take it, got the exchange finalized, and they had a car, and they were going to make a car available. Then it turned out we had to cancel, so we didn't go. Yeah, Ireland had was the one place we could go visa free at that stage, and then they changed the rules and made visas. So I I deleted it. I said, if you want a visa, I'm not coming. It's one of the reasons I won't go to the UK anymore. I'm just couldn't be bothered with all that fuss and hassle of getting a visa and
So
cost.
I just want to say I am recording the actual presentation, but Tony has given me the presentation separately, so I could pass that on as well.
Yeah, feel free to do so, Ian.
Okay, any more questions or comments?
Was there any outside the home exchange? What about flying and getting points for flying? How do you go about that?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you though.
When I fly,
Yes.
I don't always travel with the same airline. That's probably why I haven't been getting points for traveling. You've accumulated a lot of points, haven't you?
No, we didn't, because we're going on all different airlines.
Okay. Okay.
You're not going with One Alliance or Star Alliance. So no, I got no airline points. To be honest, unless you're a frequent traveler on an airline, airline points these days are pretty useless.
So I think you're mistaking Tony's points for his home exchange.
Yes,
nothing to do. Home exchange points have got nothing to do with any airline points.
Yeah, it was the airline points I was asking about. Yeah,
no, I've given up. I've got SAA points, and to be honest, the only thing I do with them these days is exchange them for Uber credits, because they seem to be utterly useless for anything else.
Okay. What about airport lounges? Do you have any tips on
lounges? They're increasingly cutting down on access to lounges. It's become more complicated, more difficult, more costly, because the lounges are just completely overcrowded. I mean, I'll give you one example. The USA, when I had that very expensive flight to get from Kennedy to Ithaca, I bought a first class ticket because I offered first class for $50 more. So I thought I'd been very smart here. One, it gave me a free bag, which you otherwise pay for in the US, and the bag cost $30. So of the $50, $30 went to pay for the bag, and I thought, oh, goody, I can get into a lounge. Trekked halfway across Newark, that was Kennedy, yeah, to get to the lounge. They said, no, your ticket does not allow you access. It's only international passengers, not domestic. So even a first class ticket in the USA does not give you access to a lounge. Lounge access in the USA is a nightmare. It's really been restricted to, platinum class gold, card holders with huge point balances and whatever. For the average traveler, you can, if you've got a American Express card, you can pay for lounge access if they have a seat. It's expensive and often unavailable, because, just as I say, the lounges are flooded. So not easy to get lounge access.
I travelled from Heathrow last week, and I arrived at the airport very early. And my daughter has recommended that I went into the Premier Lounge. Right. And I tried and tried and tried, but it's a real class system. If you're economy, They don't want you. You know, it's only for business and first class travelers. It was horrible.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I've just sort of basically given up. Sorry, one thing I'd forgotten to mention, the US airlines in particular have, I think it's typically 4 levels of economy. Okay, so there's sort of premium economy, sort of middle economy, and the basic economy. And with quite substantial difference in pricings. This is before you even get to business class or anything like that, which is crazily expensive. And I was advised is do not take, this was my brother-in-law, lives in the USA. He says, don't ever take the basic economy fare, because that's the first passengers who get bumped, and you board last, and this, that, and the other. Well, I ignored that advice and generally took the basic economy fare, because we were on holiday and doing one leg where if we got bumped or whatever, sorry, excuse me, it wasn't really going to matter. We could survive. And we never had a problem. Looked helped by the fact that we had wheelchair access. So, that tends to overcome the disadvantages of the basic economy. And as I say, there's quite a big saving. And yeah, you have to look, it's a nightmare booking. As I say, these 4 levels, one you have to pay for all your bags, and the other one you get one bag. One you can get a flight change, one has got no changes. Now, so, it really depends on the nature of your trip and what you're doing, as to which one you can cope with. But as I say, we used, I think, virtually without exception, because if I hadn't, it would have pushed the price of the trip up quite a bit. And I was aiming to try and do it for no more than getting a round the world ticket, which, if you have got the flexibility in your itinerary and it suits, a round the world ticket is still a good option, because it's got the big benefit that actually you're not tied to any dates. You can change your itinerary as you go. Okay. So if you're a young couple going on a round the world trip and you're going to kind of, stop here, stop there, stop the next place, and you really don't quite know where you're going to go, how long you're going to stop, that's a great option. We had definite places we wanted to be, to see definite people. So that flexibility was of no benefit to us. So I just wanted the lowest cost way to get to where we needed to be. And, once you're sitting on the aircraft seat, there's no difference in comfort. They're all equally uncomfortable.
I'm delighted to hear you talking about getting wheelchair access, because it's sort of something that one doesn't really normally want to broadcast. But in this context, I think it's fantastically stimulating and a great idea. Because as we get older, I want to travel till I'm at least 90. And wheelchair access is going to make that possible. And I had my first experience of it flying to wherever I was flying in England recently, and I had a little accident, and I wasn't supposed to be lifting weights, so I got it, feeling rather guilty because I wasn't ill or anything. I just needed not to lift anything, and it was wonderful. It was really relaxing. It was a lovely way to travel, so I fully recommend it, and it's free.
Yes. Look, yeah, if you put your embarrassment in the back pocket and they don't care, that's fine. You just well, as I say, I had a look. Apparently it is being abused a bit. Some people are using this as a free or way to bypass immigration and all the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, they should They should easily just ask for a doctor's certificate and they would sort that out. But at the moment, as I say, you just tick the box on your. If you need, it's the WCHR is easily obtainable. There's 4 levels of wheelchair access. If you cannot walk down the aisle, for example, and they've got to put you on that special little trolley, if you can't get to the toilet unaided, then they're much more strict. But as long as you are mobile on the aircraft, it seems readily available. So, as I say, there are the 4 levels of wheelchair, and the others are almost coming close to medical assistance, and there the airline is very constrained as to can we cope, can the passenger cope, etc. But as long as I say, you are mobile on the aircraft, they're recognizing that some of the main strain of travel is just getting from the check-in desk to the aircraft. That's what's really tiring and difficult for people because of the long queues. I mean, you can queue for hours getting through some of those immigration points in the US in particular. It's horrendous. And you're just standing, in a long queue. I can't do it, just, so yeah, and I think that's what it's meant to address is really a pretty broken airport system, to be honest. And that's the way around it.
Well,
So yeah, my advice to anybody is use it,
Anyway, I think it's time to thank Tony. A very interesting talk, quite a different flavor from our usual talks. It's not a travelogue, it's a kind of almost how to do it thing, but a unique type of experience. So I'd like to thank you very much and for answering all those questions as well at the end.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Ian.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And good travel experience.
Thanks.